Welcome everyone. I'm really happy to see a few people coming online here. And while we wait a few more seconds, I invite everyone to do a little breathing exercise to ground and arrive here. And it's one I got from the Bruce Lee of breath, who is Dan Brulé. And it's very simple. It's called the sigh of relief. And you breathe in as much as you can, and then you add a little bit more, and then you just let the breath flow out of your mouth. So it looks like this. And I invite everyone to do this 3 to 5 times, and then we'll start. One last time. And just take a second to feel into yourself if this changed anything for you, if you're more present, more relaxed, or if it's just the same. Okay, and with this, I'm happy to welcome you to our webinar, Your Life on LinkedIn with Dylan Anderson. Welcome, Dylan, and I'd like to invite you to give a short introduction about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much for having me, Marcus and Miriam. I really appreciate it. And my name's Dylan Anderson. I'm a head of data strategy at Profusion, which is a data consulting firm in London, a small one. And I am, as you know, I'm in data strategy. I've been in strategy consulting my entire career and moved from pure strategy consulting into data. And because I realized that a lot of strategy, a lot of the things that companies deal with can be solved by data a lot better. And so it helps to kind of use that and use that knowledge to further implement the strategy moving forward. And my kind of background also extends into the technical domain in that I code in R. So I brought those two things together and found that data strategy was the niche I really played at. And now I help larger organizations. I've worked with probably 40 to 50 different organizations build data strategies to really understand what they want to use data for, how they get the benefit from it, how they stand up teams or think about data within the organization, and most importantly, like how they get value from data, which is a very hard thing for a lot of organizations. And yeah, my kind of role is doing that and working with organizations to help figure that out, and with my consulting team.
Yeah, and in addition to this, you're very active on LinkedIn, as most of you know. So my question is, what we see a lot is that people have an emotional or mental blocker to really build up a personal brand on LinkedIn. How was this for you when you started?
Yeah, no. Well, thanks for bringing that up, because I don't usually include it in my intro as much, but that's obviously the purpose of today. And for me, LinkedIn actually marked kind of my entryway into data strategy. I started posting on it and becoming more active on it when I realized I wanted to leave a company I was at. I was at Deloitte, and I wanted to leave there because I wasn't doing data work. I wasn't doing the data strategy work that I wanted to and signed up for. I was still being pigeonholed in the strategy domain. And for me, LinkedIn was a way of, okay, I need to figure out what my niche is. I want to kind of also promote myself and find that next job. And I originally tackled it to find that next job, but what it actually helped me do was hone in on where my experience was. And because I started posting about things that I did. I was posting about consulting, I was posting about strategy, I was posting about data, about crypto, technology, about everything. And I was kind of like finding my audience and finding what I liked writing about and talking about. And that was kind of how I came to data strategy as my niche, and it fit my experience perfectly. So it really did help me test out my thinking and test out my ideas, which led to a role at another consulting firm as a lead data strategist. And that kind of kicked off my foray into data strategy completely. And obviously, and you'll probably ask and follow on, kicked off a lot more of my data strategy posts on LinkedIn and my existing newsletter as well.
How long did this finding your niche phase take? So was it a few months? Was it a year? Longer, shorter?
I think it was a few months for sure. It was at least 4 or 5 months until I kind of comfortably felt okay, this is what I want to be talking about. This is where I want to be focusing on. And what I'd say too is it's shifted over the years as well. I mean, I've been on LinkedIn for 3.5 years or so, mostly posting every day with breaks in between. But so it does change as I kind of shift my gears. Like I used to be kind of pure, more data strategy and data analytics related. Now I kind of cover the whole data ecosystem, which is also the title of my newsletter and the topic of my newsletter. And I think that niche just helps. I think posting on LinkedIn is really kind of, what are you interested in? What do you want to talk about? What are people interested in talking about as well? And finding that blend of all those things, because it's a great place to engage with others and understand others as well and learn from their thinking.
Yeah, that's the same. I feel it's a great place to connect and like exchange about the topics that we are all interested in. So when you started, how much time did you spend on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think when I was starting out, I was spending quite a bit more time writing posts. I'd say it probably took me about 20 to 30 minutes to write every post. And now it takes me like 5 to 10 minutes. So I've definitely honed in on that expedient aspect. And then I was also I spent a lot of time building a community, interacting with other people. So who I see on this call, work commenting on their posts, but also just like having chats and coffee chats on there as well. So it did kind of serve as a full focus platform. The one thing I did do is I pulled back from LinkedIn a bit, and now I kind of only go on once or twice a day, just for my own, because it is a form of social media. Like you can kind of get lost in the feed, you can get lost in all that stuff. So you need to kind of set your own boundaries and set your own goals for why you're using it. And for me now, it really is kind of like at the community and talking with people I want to talk to. It's about kind of commenting and building the engagement around when I post. And it's about kind of staying current on what's going on in the data world. And those are kind of the three main aims. And then if I was looking for a job, I guess that would factor in as well, but I'm not currently.
Yeah. So what do you do when you are on vacation?
I typically don't post on vacation, but sometimes I will pre-schedule all my posts. So I schedule all my posts anyway, just because it makes it a lot easier. I used to not, and now I use Publer to schedule my posts. You can also use the LinkedIn native scheduler, but I think it actually decreases your reach. But yeah, I schedule it and let it run and let it go. And then on vacation, I just try to stay off the app because otherwise it does, because I've been doing it for so long, it does kind of feel like a job. And so it's important for me to kind of create that separation from engaging and doing stuff on LinkedIn and remembering that like there's life outside of it and everything. But it is, I have that healthy boundary now. So that is kind of crucial.
So you said you have this healthy boundary now. So it feels like, or it sounds a bit like you needed to find it consciously.
Yeah, I think with anything, right? And anytime with social media, there is kind of there's an addiction aspect of it. And I think there is a dopamine effect of like, oh, there's lots of likes and comments and engagement. But after a while, like that kind of fades, and you either get into you find your boundaries, or you are trying to constantly improve on that and increase that. And I think it's important to kind of find your boundaries rather than trying to constantly improve on it. It's also another reason why I also started a Substack, right? I want to diversify and do things other than LinkedIn, and also do a lot more long form writing, because LinkedIn's great for exposure. It's great for networking, but I wanted to do serious thinking about what my Substack is called, the data ecosystem. It's about kind of how everything in data flows together, and how it does that, and how we think about data. We need to start thinking about data more holistically rather than in silos. Yeah. And for me, that Substack helped kind of draw me away from LinkedIn. And now my time is focused on writing those articles, and those articles actually feed into my LinkedIn posts for the week. So they do complement each other, but it gives me a bit of an outlet that's not a social media related thing. Although Substack is trying to do a bunch of social media type stuff, but that's besides the point.
Yeah. So I think that is a very inspirational and healthy approach you've described there. What was your biggest opportunity that you created out of your LinkedIn activity? Was it the new job that was really focused, or was it like the whole journey that started from there, the new job, the Substack deeper dive option you created for yourself?
Yeah, I think the biggest, it's a great question, because I think there's two kind of angles you can take. One, from an opportunity space, is I've had a lot of inbound leads from LinkedIn for my consulting work, or my firm's consulting work, and that helps with sales, and that helps with keeping me busy and all that kind of stuff. And so those opportunities are great because they pay the bills and such. I think from a more philosophical perspective, I think it got me thinking about my career in a different way. So rather than just LinkedIn being an online resume where I post sometimes and people can see, oh yeah, this person worked at X, Y, and Z. For me, it helped me kind of steer the ship into figuring out what I want to do with my career. So getting that data strategy niche, also thinking about my career and what I do as more than just my full-time job. So I have this personal brand that's Dylan Anderson. And in addition to my company brands, which are Profusion, Redkite, Accenture, Deloitte, etc. So it does differentiate me, because I'm no longer completely tied to the company I work at. And that kind of thinking has shifted my mentality about what it means to work, what it means to be a professional, what it means to deliver data at scale. And I think that has created a whole host of opportunities for how I operate and how I think about the working world.
Yeah. Makes sense. Very interesting. And it's interesting to see where like the exploration work you did on LinkedIn went, in which direction, and how broad it actually opened up the horizon of where you move now for yourself. It's really interesting, and it's also a good thing to see that LinkedIn is more than, as you said, just the resume, but also like a sales platform or a brand building thing. It can also be a playground for your personal growth in every way, if you use it that way. As a data strategy consultant, you are definitely data driven. So my question here is, does this make LinkedIn easier for you or more difficult?
It's a funny one. In a way, it's more difficult because you want more analytics, and LinkedIn has improved their analytics, but they're still not that great. So you kind of want to use that. I don't subscribe to Shield or any of those other apps, although they are very helpful if you really want to dive into that. At the beginning, I really tried to track and figure out what worked, what didn't work. I don't care as much about that anymore, mostly because I've been doing it for so long. It's just in the background. And I know what works intrinsically in my head, but I think those analytics and using that data and what's available to you is important if you're just starting out and you want to make an impact and you want to find what people engage with and what work. I think, though, on the other side, I as a data person, I do use what I have quite a bit one of the biggest things is I reuse content, and something I posted on a year ago or 6 months ago, I might reuse again. And so every 6 months or so, I scrape my past 6 months of or however many posts of LinkedIn and looked at kind of what did well, what didn't do well. And I'll just pull the things that did well and be like, okay, I'm going to reuse that in the future. I'm going to reuse that in the future. So I have a running Microsoft Word document that's, I think, 1,000 pages long of all my LinkedIn posts in the past. And I just kind of go to, okay, this one was on May 28th, 24. And I'm just going to pull that and pull that up to, and we'll post it again in June 2025. So it does help from a, how do I think about posting in the future, and what can I reuse to make it work? Because honestly, content that worked a year ago tends to work this year because not much changes.
Yeah, that's interesting. Since I'm not a data person myself, but I'm married to one, and also he's also my business partner, and he was the same. The LinkedIn analytics, they give you something, but not very much. And that actually brought the whole journey of professional profile analytics going. It was Marcus' urge to understand what works on LinkedIn, what doesn't, what can we do to like amplify our authentic voice there. And also, I think what for me personally most motivating is the engagement underneath my post and with other people and their post and underneath their post. So it's actually the discussions that start. What is it? What keeps you motivated, or what is the fun in there specifically that keeps you going?
So for me, it's part of that, and I'll build to that in what it is. I think I was quite disengaged with LinkedIn about a year ago because I've been doing it for so long, and for me, I'm not necessarily selling that much on LinkedIn. I don't have my own business. I'm not like making that much money through it. So there needs to be that intrinsic motivation. And I did enjoy posting about things and about new topics and learning about those, but I wasn't doing it. It wasn't, LinkedIn format was too short. So I did go to Substack. I started creating newsletters, and now my intrinsic motivation is actually those newsletters. But LinkedIn is still my biggest following, and it's still where I get a lot of data content, and I spread it out. So being able to use it in that way, that's my motivation, and learning more about data and learning more and building that kind of knowledge base. That's kind of my motivation. I enjoy that. And one reason I like also translate from Substack to LinkedIn is Substack is great. You put it out there, it's a newsletter, people get it in the emails, awesome. But it doesn't create the conversations, right? Whereas to your point, LinkedIn creates a conversation. So people will comment on it, be like, oh, that's a great idea, or I have something to build on that. And I've changed my content in my Substack based on comments from the LinkedIn, because there's like a huge amount of people who are experts in things that I'm not an expert in. Like I will write on data engineering or data quality or something, and I'll get someone who's an expert in that talking about those things in a bit more detail, and that will allow me to learn those things and build on it. And I think that has also just like increased my confidence with those topic areas and my ability to speak to them. And that was another opportunity aspect I didn't mention for LinkedIn, is just that community and that build and getting that from LinkedIn in that way.
Great. So I have one last question at the moment. Maybe I come up with more. So if people want to get as many followers as you have on LinkedIn, it's nearly 50,000. What are your 2 top recommendations?
My first one is to really find your niche. What is it you want to post about? What is that you think connects with people and does connect with people, and that will take time to figure out. And finding that niche is important because it will keep you intrinsically motivated to post, because you don't get to 50,000 in a year. Some people might, but like they have crazy accomplishments and other things, or they're very, very, I don't know, on top of it. so it is about kind of finding a niche that will keep you interested in, that you want to talk with, and that people do resonate with, that people see you and be like, oh, that person speaks well to that topic. And then the other thing is kind of consistency and being able to post at least kind of 4 to 5 times a week. I tend to do that. I post Mondays to Fridays, and now I've kind of posted on weekends here and there, but again, it's all scheduled. But that consistency is key, because, like, for example, I didn't post all of last week, and my kind of impressions in the past 7 days dropped by like tenfold. So it makes a huge difference. And you're never going to kind of create that following unless you're consistent about it. You're consistently building and sharing and doing that type of stuff, and doing it in a way that people listen and people want to engage with. And I'll add a third one in there too, is
Mhm.
use, I think we talked about this, so like use what data and what insights you have to hone your writing and hone what works and what doesn't. Because like if you don't do that, you're just going to be constant noise. And you see a ton of that on LinkedIn, and it's more and more. It's a very busy platform. So you need to figure out how you can stand out from the crowd and how you can stand away from AI as well. Like I definitely use AI to write, but it's not I don't copy and paste a post from my AI engine into LinkedIn. I edit it and I make sure it has a human voice and it actually says something and insightful rather than just kind of blah. So yeah, use your analytics to kind of hone what you say and how you say it.
Yeah, that's resonating with what I feel is kind of the secret sauce to growth, follower growth. So now I invite everyone listening in to ask questions, either in the chat or just unmute.
I have a question, Dylan, since you're working professional and, highly active on LinkedIn, especially in the beginning, which is where I consider myself to be at. I get the concern that like my employer will end up seeing, first of all, lots of your connections end up being, at least in the beginning for me, from people who you work with, right? And so I don't like the impression from coworkers or like managers or other people at the company that I'm spending company time on LinkedIn, or I'm spending, even if it's like totally not true. And so how did you overcome that kind of, like you said, you didn't mention in your introduction, it's not like when you're talking with a certain kind of person, something you bring up. Where did you draw the line, and where did you build comfort?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think people have trouble with this sometimes. I think one thing I'll say is, like, when I started out, everyone around me, even at work, was like, wow, this is like really cool. Like, this is awesome. Like, you keep doing it kind of thing. And there's a lot of support there. And that was at Deloitte, which is like a hugely audit company, quite regulated, all that kind of stuff. And then that support kind of continued throughout. I think that the two things I kind of made sure of is one, I wrote all my stuff pre-work, and now you can schedule it too, so you don't even need to like be online. And I tend to post at like 1:08 UK time, which is 8 a.m. US Eastern time, and that gives me like, okay, I could just, if I want to comment around when I post, I could just do it at lunchtime. And if I have a meeting then okay, I'm not on LinkedIn. And you have to get over that idea that people really are paying attention to what you're doing, and that people actually don't care. Although I do say, like, sometimes my friends will get like that notifications. They'll let me know, like, I get constantly notified that you're posting on LinkedIn over again, or you're commenting on this person's post. I'm like, oh, that's so annoying. I don't want you to get notified for that. But you just kind of have to get over it, because like no one's going to mention it otherwise, especially. And I think this is the second biggest thing, is like making sure that your content is like what you want it to be. It's informative, educational, whatever. I really stick to that. Like I make sure my content's educational. It's not really about me winning or about making money or something like that. Like some people like trend in that direction, and some people do all sponsored content. And so if it's educational, it's like, there's no kind of there's no negative light you can put it in unless it's kind of wrong, and then I'll adjust it or take it down and repost it. But I think the biggest thing is just make sure that you're not sharing anything harmful or scandalous or anything like that, and you're also setting those boundaries like I talked about kind of earlier. That's just key.
Okay, we have one question in the chat. That's what's your approach to understanding audience behavior shifts over time?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is looking back at what you've posted and how people react to that, where people react. I think that's the biggest thing, and as well as kind of keeping in touch with what's going on, what other people are talking about. What I'd say is like I've reposted stuff from a year ago or 2 years ago that just don't hit because it's not relevant anymore. And so you just have to kind of be mindful of those things. Like you're not going to do it. It's not worth it. And you're not going to do a deep dive into your audience via the LinkedIn analytics because it's like, it doesn't give you that much, but you are going to understand your audience better if you look at the post analytics and understand who's commenting on that, what's that look like, and who's your community on LinkedIn. Like usually you do have a community of people that you engage with and you post with and stuff like that. So they're your primary audience, and that will help. Working with them will help boost your posts and everything. So that's the audience you also really want to pay attention to.
So any more questions? I have none in the chat.
Maybe one from me. I don't. As I think you're also more on the side of like posting for text, infographics, a couple of memes from now and then. What's your take on like video on LinkedIn? So I haven't started so far with that, thinking about it as like LinkedIn is really pushing hard on that, but I'm not really sure if like LinkedIn is really the right platform for this kind of content. So what's your take?
That's a great question, Andy. And yeah, I'm so if you look at all the stats, like you can see what does well and what doesn't well. And I find that like pictures do really well. Like images, one post images. Carousels also used to do well, but they take a lot of time to make, so I don't bother with that. Text does fairly well, but not as well as it used to. Reposts do awful. Videos do quite well now. Yeah. And I see LinkedIn trending towards that. I see a lot of people trending towards that. I refuse to do videos of myself because it's just not my niche. It's not who I am. And I don't like to just put myself on camera and then put it onto the internet. Like I don't have Instagram or anything like that. So I think it's a personal preference. It's the same thing with selfies. Marcus, you mentioned the chat. Selfies do really well, and you tend to see a lot of people do selfies that are completely unrelated to what they're posting about, which I just think is not seriously authentic. But if you want to increase your presence, if you want to go more viral, selfies do really well with the algorithm for some reason. So go ahead and do it. Yeah, dogs, cats, and kids as well, sure. So it's a personal preference. Luckily, I got in to scale before the videos and selfies came up, and I don't have to use them to grow in any way. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel similar about it. I feel that it's also a personal choice. It has to fit your like authentic beingness. If you don't feel comfortable on a video, it doesn't make sense to use it. Or for me, I can't use cats and dogs. It's just not my I can't do it. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah, and actually also something that Andy said that I do is I do memes. I do video memes. But I've done those for years just because I find them funny. And I like to do the meme, but also add educational content in the post on that. And for me, that I find is authentic to my brand, even though it's not necessarily professional, and it tends to do well. So
yeah,
I think I like that.
Yeah, I think the secret is there. If it's authentic to you because you like it and you enjoy it and it's fun for you, then it works.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like professional, it doesn't really have to be professional. It has to fit yourself. And when it's like authentically you, I think the audience can feel it. Ilya, you have raised your hand. Do you want to
Yeah.
ask a question?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I can. I'm in a car, so I can't switch on the camera. But thanks for insights, Dylan. Was very interesting. I had one question, but now after your last one, I have two. So first, original question was, how do you measure success? Like number of followers or engagement? It's all nice and it like feels good, but like in my case, I'm a freelancer, so I need like sales or at least leads through LinkedIn. How do you measure it? Like what, do you have some recommendations on? Yeah, basically not some things which bring a lot of followers, not necessarily bring the right followers. This is a bit of my problem. And the second adjustment question is, you mentioned that some formats work better than others. Again, how do you measure? Like, did you do a A/B testing with the same content in different formats, or because it's difficult to compare, right? You probably have different posts with different formats.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the first question, so how I measure it, I usually measure via like my main metric is followers, to be honest, and engagements. I'm not a freelancer. I'm not relying on the business sold from. So sometimes I do call to action posts and see if I get like any inbounds from that, and that is kind of a metric as well. But I don't do that as often. I think there is, for a freelancer or for someone who's using LinkedIn as a sales engine, I think there is more opportunity to kind of like engage with people who have engaged your posts or comments to your post. I don't do that. But I think that might be kind of a thing there. And you can measure, okay, I reached out to this many people and this many people responded based off of my engagement there. But for me, it's mostly just kind of followers and engagements. And I go through spurts of tracking and analyzing that and having a target versus not as well. My main focus right now is actually on my newsletter. So which the LinkedIn grows via my newsletter as well, because I have content from the newsletter that goes on LinkedIn. And then the second question that you had, I think, what was it again? It was, different mediums of posts. Yeah, that honestly has come through just kind of seeing and posting for so long, and seeing how the algorithm shifts, how it changes. Like there was times where my infographics were doing really, really well, and there's times that weren't. And I was like, this is weird. It's like the same kind of thing, but it's just like completely different. So you kind of see how it shifts. But LinkedIn has, I think, moved to a bit more of a visual aesthetic in that they promote pictures and they really like pictures because that engages people and people look at pictures. And then they also love videos, but I don't do videos. So unless I do like meme videos which don't have my face in it. So it's just kind of trial and error and seeing what exists out there.
Okay, thanks.
So listening to this, I have another question, if you want or if you're open to share this. So you said you don't do any extra outreach for your service that you offer next to your job. So the only income would be from your organic posting, or do you have anything else?
Well, I still have a full-time job. So that pays the bills, and that is where I make.
And how many customers just like come in by themselves without you doing anything, just by like posting about it?
So most of my work, like again, I work at a consulting firm, and I'm not responsible for all the sales. We have existing clients that I work with, or we get them through different means. So my LinkedIn does not necessarily bring in all of our sales. I've brought in a few clients and a few leads via that, but it's not my main way of selling. And then in terms of like other income from LinkedIn or other means, that happens on occasion, but it's mostly inbound stuff as well. I'm not doing much outreach because I have the full-time job, and I haven't tied myself to only doing via the freelance stuff. It might be something I explore in the future, but it's not something I want to do right now because I still enjoy working in consulting. I learn a lot from being in consulting, And I really enjoy working with a lot of different companies that give me exposure to a lot of different things in the data world, which helps contribute to my newsletter and to my LinkedIn stuff.
So it's like a self-feeding cycle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for me, it's I never want to become a full-time content creator, because then I'm stepping outside of the data consulting realm and out of the data industry, and I'm not learning what's going on. I'm creating content about that, but I'm not actually doing that. Like right now, I'm doing a customer data model for a multi-billion-dollar organization, and I wouldn't be able to do that if I was doing just content creation.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Any more questions?
Yes. So question one would be, Dylan, have you ever brought up your LinkedIn within the company, right? Like to a manager in a one-on-one type thing?
Yeah, I mean, I bring it up once in a while, and I tend to share my newsletter articles to clients if it's relevant. So it is like, I tend not to, I don't love to talk about it, but if it's relevant, I do share the newsletter, especially because that is kind of, I'm writing about issues, problems that happen in the data space, and that I see a lot of clients go through.
Absolutely.
So you kind of, sorry, may I just clarify? You use it to educate your clients in your work if it's like fitting. Did I get this right? Yeah, perfect. Yeah, great.
But there's never been, like, I know Steven Stark is another creator he's at a lower mark, probably like 20,000 followers, but also in the data and operations space. And he was recently on the job market, and I think it was something that came up when he was looking for a job, let's say. And so it's definitely something I'm curious about on the long-term time horizon. If having a strong LinkedIn presence becomes like the company wants to retain you more because you're well recognized in the field.
Yeah, I would say that definitely is true. I think so. My current role, actually, I got through LinkedIn, not because I knew somebody else in the data consulting space in London who I met via LinkedIn, and I was looking, and I talked with her, and then she knew me through that, and I went through that process and got the job via that. And so it kind of, I think it helped in terms of built my community and my network, which I think is the most important thing in the end. And you have to kind of take your network beyond posting and beyond being a connection, right? Like I have so many first degree connections who I've never met the person. So like my network, I wouldn't consider to be my LinkedIn network. My network is the people who I interact with and engage with beyond LinkedIn, who I know from a personal level. And I think that's where it really helps your career, because then you can reach out to those people and you know those people. And yeah, people, I think my company definitely does know that I have the LinkedIn presence, because that's one way I bring in business, right? So people, that does help me in my kind of aspirations and career. I think it just all depends on how it fits into your own personal professional career.
So I think we are beginning to wrap it up. I have one last question from the chat. This is, what are some key patterns or trends you look for in LinkedIn engagement data?
Yeah, so I think that the biggest thing is, I think the number of comments and reposts, because I think people really quite enjoy it if it's comments and reposts. I also look at the correlation between kind of like the impressions of a post as well and followers, because I think, like, for example, my memes, they do great on LinkedIn, but they don't necessarily translate into followers. But people will follow me for like an informative educational content thing a lot more. So you kind of start to see some of those patterns, and you see you see the correlation and causation in that, and that's kind of the data nerd coming out in me. But looking for those things, depending on whatever your goals are, is important. I think there's a really good book called Snow Leopard. And it talks about obvious content and non-obvious content, and how obvious content is stuff that like everyone agrees with, like those classic LinkedIn things that go viral where it's like a few words or like very blah and not that informative. And then there's also non-obvious content, which like doesn't necessarily go as viral, but makes you think far. Me like, oh, I really want to follow that person because that person is like really going above and beyond and like making me think and harder about these things, make me learn about it. And I think looking at that, I always try to balance my obvious and non-obvious content. And that's kind of one way I do via the correlation between engagements and followers. And I think that's one of the biggest things I look for in the data.
Trying to reconnect. Okay, I just was shortly off, but I think I got most of it. The last thing you talked about it was the book Snow Leopard.
Yeah, and the and the type
non-obvious.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to, let's just stay authentic to who you are and your brand.
Yeah, and also get a feeling for, as you said, what works, what doesn't, what is the right mixture for me. I want to end the call with an invitation to everyone who hasn't tried PPA yet. We actually do similar things than you talked about, Dylan, with the finding correlations, finding hooks that work, go to all old posts and see where the engagement is high. And you can play around it for 2 weeks for free and then see if it adds any value for you. Marcus put in extra information in the chat. I'm sorry, I can't see all the information. I'm on my phone. Yeah, so I enjoyed this very much. Thank you. I found it very informative. I hope the rest of you as well. And I hope you enjoyed it also. And we might do it again in the future someday. It's very interesting to see how different people use LinkedIn, for what they use it, where it leads to, into what it grows, and also see the like beyond LinkedIn with you and your newsletter. What are the synergies that you can create for yourself there? Do you want to add any whatever last sentences here?
No, but thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it. And it was great to have the chat today. Some great questions, and good luck to everybody on their own LinkedIn journey and professional journey. It is, I mean, the biggest thing is to know where you want to go, why you're taking it, and figure out the best way to do it and actually execute against it, because it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time, but it is worth it in a lot of ways, especially if you have that clear path.
Yeah, with what you said there, that triggered the thought that with the why, I think it's sometimes very hard to figure out this why. We have a 10-day email course for free, which is just like this journey, this internal journey of finding out why actually do you want to be on LinkedIn, what do you want to achieve there, and do little steps. So anyone who is interested to do the email course or get the emails and have a look there can just send Marcus his email address. And I think Marcus, not if this is okay, he will then cater to you personally. And with this, I wish you a wonderful rest of the day. Very happy to have you all here. Special thanks to Dylan. I really enjoyed our chat, and I wish you all a beautiful day.